All right, everyone, we will go ahead and get started. So great to see everyone. I am Ollie, the Civic Engagement Intern here at Rev Up. For a quick visual description, I'm a light skinned Black being with short brown hair, hoop earrings, and a nice linen shirt. We're going to go ahead and get started. But before we get into our agenda, I wanted to review a couple of our access features today. So, as always, we have cart captioning, which you can view by clicking the CC button on the bottom of your toolbar. Or if you prefer to view the captions in another window, we'll put the stream text link into the chat. Our interpreters today are Amy and Gordon, and we'll have the interpreters pinned throughout the session. For access, we'll keep chat usage to a minimum. So if you use the chat to communicate, our events coordinator, April, will read your chat out loud for all of us. If you have any access issues or questions, please send a direct message over to April or just raise your hand. For today's call, we'll mainly use the raise hand feature to engage or ask questions. And before you speak, make sure to share your name, if it feels good, your pronouns, and where you're from, so we all know a little bit about you. With just 10 weeks until election day, we're going to start off our call today going over some election safety tips. Then we'll take a short break and hear from some of our community members with a couple of updates. So, with that, I will go ahead and pass it off to Dwayne, who will be giving us a short presentation about election safety.
It's a pleasure to be here today. So many of you know that we have been talking about election safety for the past few months. And
Wait, this is Alexia. Can you adjust your volume? I think it's low.
one moment, sorry. Okay. Is that better now? Perfect. Alrighty. Hey everyone. As I said before, this is Dwayne. As you know, we have been discussing election safety for the past few months. It's something that's very near and dear to us, especially considering everything that's been going on in the world. So I'm going to go through a couple of things around just some election safety guidelines for folks to have in the back of their pocket. And also, I'm going to send this out to folks directly following this call with the recording that we have today, so folks can also review. All right, so I guess I'll go ahead and jump in. So with election safety, just top lining this, most important thing for folks is to know what your rights are. We want to ensure that, sorry, okay, got it. So with election safety, the most important thing is that we want folks to know what their rights are. Make sure that all eligible voters are able to cast their votes, as meaning you all are out here doing the work. That's really important to us, and be aware of anything that you believe to be discrimination or intimidation. Try to familiarize yourself with your local, state, and federal voting rights protections. It's very important. For many folks, their legislative session is over, so there may be some things that have been newly implemented. So I just want to go ahead and lift that up. Another thing that we want folks to be mindful of is to bring the essentials. Make sure you have your ID or any required documentation and that you're ready if needed for your state. Also, bring a fully charged phone with your emergency contact saved. It's very important, and try to carry any necessary accessibility tools such as mobility aids or communication devices. Those things are very important while you're out. Okay. Sorry, y'all. I'm also trying to make sure folks have questions that I'm lifting them in the moment. Another thing, it is important that folks stay aware and be mindful of your surrounding and any suspicious activity from a poll worker or authorities. I think it's important to report these pieces. I have a number on the one pager of the National Protection Hotline for you all to have. You can save it in your phone, just to be mindful of if something does go awry or you believe that this is a particular situation. We want to make sure that folks are reporting these things. Another, if possible, go to the polls with a friend, family member, or community group. It's always best to go in numbers, assist others in your community. For instance, they need rides to the polls or different things on those lines, especially our fellow folks in our community that have disabilities. Ensure that they can vote safely. It's really important. And then I'm going to go through really briefly on the do's and don'ts and leave space for folks to ask any questions. I want to go over the do's first, and then we'll do the don'ts. So the do's: remain calm if you encounter any difficulties or delays. Seek help from a poll worker or designated election official in the moment. Document any instance of intimidation, harassment, or voter suppression. If you feel safe, use your phone to record the details. Ask for assistance if needed. As you all know, under federal law, voters with disabilities can request help from someone of their choice. Like, you have that option. Definitely make sure that you implement. Now for the don'ts. This is the don'ts. Don't engage with confrontation with other voters, observers, or poll workers. If approached aggressively, try to create as much distance as you can and report the incident. Don't wear politically affiliated clothing, buttons, or hats at the polls, as this could be considered electioneering, depending on if you're working with a particular organization. It may lead to removal from the polling place. So wanted to put that as well. And don't share personal information with strangers or unauthorized personnel. I wanted to also name this in terms of awareness for potential dangers. So we have our public threats, where we want to avoid any aggressive behavior that's not quite norm within the polling locations that you know for your area. Every place is different. What may be seen as outside the norm in Florida will be something totally different what's outside the norm in Michigan, right? So just have that piece. Understand that intimidation tactics, that they can occur through verbal threats, physical presence, or discriminatory comments. And as we are trying to recognize these tactics, and we know that they are illegal, again, I can't stress this enough, report any incident of intimidation immediately to your election officials. And I would say to definitely consider legal advice if necessary. In terms of accessibility barriers, that is a part of a potential danger, right? Be aware of the inaccessible polling sites or inadequate assistance. May also be a form of voter suppression. And so if you encounter these barriers, again, notify local election boards and, different disability rights organizations such as ourselves. And again, I can't stress it enough, the National Election Protection Hotline. That concludes my piece. I wanted to leave space for any questions that folks may have. Everyone's like, I know this information. I'm good. Love it, love it, love it. I'm going to throw it back to you, Ollie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dwayne. And there is no rush on your questions. Feel free to let them filter in through the chat. If you'd like to raise your hand, feel free to use the raised hand function. We can give it another minute or so if y'all do have any questions, or if there's some scenarios that you want to present to Dwayne. Yes. Lifting what Alexia just wrote in the chat. If you experience any of these issues, particularly in accessibility polls or with your voting experience, you can report it to the Department of Justice. That link from the civilrights.justice.gov website.
Also want to lift up what Rebecca said, that they are going to be going to a workshop in October and they're going to also receive a disability training to our poll workers. So I'm really excited about that as well. All righty, I'm gonna throw it back to you, Ollie.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. And oh, Amelia, if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question, go ahead.
Hi everybody, my name is Amelia, she, any pronouns. I'm from Syracuse, New York, white female with pinkish glasses and too many facial piercings. I wanted to ask for those of us that are a little bit of pushovers, doing prep for Rev Up. We were doing some testing of the ballot marking devices and we're recommending that folks use them even if they didn't usually use them. And I noticed that folks that I had recommend do that, a lot of them came back and said, well, nobody stopped me from doing it, but they very strongly dissuaded me from doing it. And I felt like I should just do the regular ballot. They were giving me the regular thing, and they're like, well, it's over there in the corner and you don't really want to do that. And so I just did the regular thing. So any feedback for folks that aren't so good at pushing back on that?
Yeah, I think that it's difficult to say for each individual because some folks, depending on if it's a time thing, if they don't have the time to go back and forth with someone, they may say, you know what, I'm not going to do this. What I would say is stick to what you've requested, stick to it. Also, I would try to get more information around the individual that is trying to dissuade someone, and I will report that. I report the entire situation. That's what would be my advice. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's never too late, right? Like I would name that as well. It's never too late to report those things, right? Sometimes folks think, oh, I didn't do this within a matter of 24 or 48 hours. You can still report that information to folks. Yes, lifting what Kathy said, it is supposed to be ready to use. Absolutely. Any other questions that folks may have?
This is Alexia. I wanted to build on Amelia's concern too. I think a lot of what I've seen is sometimes poll workers are given information that isn't correct about prioritizing certain voters for using the machines because they've gotten complaints in their area about long wait times. As we know, you should be able to vote using whatever method you prefer, and no one should question you on that or discourage you on that. But I think one other piece of advice I would add to that, Amelia, is if the person can ask to speak to whoever is in charge at the polling place, the chief polling officer. They're called different things in different areas. And definitely, like Dwayne said, to give that feedback to the local election office, because that could be some misinformation that's going around in poll worker training. If they're trying to discourage people from using a machine because they've gotten complaints about long waits. the solution there is not to have less people use the machine, it's to get more voting machines, right? So that is feedback that the local election offices should hear so that then they can ask for more funding for more machines is I would add to that too. But thank you for raising that, Amelia. And for Rev Up New York's work getting more and more people to use the ballot marking devices.
Awesome. If there are more questions, keep them coming. Feel free to write them in the chat. Thank you, Amelia, so much for your great question. I'll give just a few seconds if any other questions have popped up for people. Dan, go ahead.
I'm going to ask the interpreter to voice for me. In the polls, in Georgia in particular, they refused to have a telephone in the area. Like cell phones are not allowed in that area either, for an example. And a blind person is trying to write notes and they hear their notes. But the polling place says, no, you can't take your phone in, but they have notes on how they want to proceed. What would they do in that case? How would they advocate for the use of the phone?
So I'm in Georgia. That's where I live at. And this is what part of Georgia are you in? I'm sorry, I just want to.
Atlanta.
I'm in Atlanta too. This is a very interesting thing. I haven't had anyone have issues with this piece. Usually when you tell folks the situation, hey, this is what's going on, they're supposed to be very compliant with it. So I would definitely report that. That is something that you should not be dealing with. That's something that should be reported.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you for that question, Zan.
It's Alexia, and I would say to use those magic words of ADA language, reasonable accommodation, when you're asking for permission to bring in an assistive device.
Reasonable accommodation. I'm writing that down of things to use when advocating at the polls. I'll hold space for just a few more seconds if there are any other questions.
Yes, I have a comment.
Go right ahead.
This is Matt Langland from Minnesota. I was just going to say I couldn't unmute earlier, so I had to switch to my phone but on the accessible voting machines issue please don't do that. Please insist on using the machine, because I, as a blind voter myself, sorry, this gets me fired up, because if more people aren't using the machines, that no one will use them, and poll workers will not be taught to use them, and they will always be sitting in the corner, not plugged in, and nobody will know how to use them. So please hold your ground on that. If anybody is dissuading you from using the machine, and if that is the case, report that, fill out a HAVA complaint, all that, which has kind of been mentioned. But also, if you could maybe also bring that complaint to your local elections office, which would be either possibly your city hall, your county, however elections are run in your area. It kind of depends on the size of your city or your county. But because it's the cities and counties that run the elections, and they are the ones who, maintain the voting machines, who store the voting machines, who train election judges on how to use them. And that's really where the root of all this comes down to. And so to change this, that is really where we need to be, is in those local election offices.
Thank you so much for that. When you ask to use one of those machines, you don't have to go back on that ask. Yeah, Amelia, if you'd like to respond, and then we'll go over to Marilyn.
I just wanted to quickly say, I do know who I need to contact about that. I just wasn't previously sure if that was like a complaint about the poll workers thing, but luckily I do have a relationship with both my local board of elections and actually the head of the board of elections. So I will be doing that. Thank you so very much for all the advice.
That's awesome. And I'll pass it over to Marilyn with another question.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marilyn Tucci, and I live in Suffolk County, Long Island, New York. And I just want to share with you something that happened to me this past election. I went in to vote. I voted early. And when I went in, I am blind. I have a guide dog. I go in to vote. I signed into their iPad. And I said to the poll worker, I'd like to use the accessible voting machine. So they brought me over to the accessible voting machine. And I put my hand on the machine. And I said to her, you're going to have to turn this machine around. It's facing the wrong way. It's supposed to be facing the wall automatically. That was number one. Then I found out that there were also 2 other machines. So there were a total of 3 accessible voting machines there, but the other 2 were used as scanners. So the woman kept talking to this man. I said, excuse me, can you please turn the machine around so I could start to vote? That was the second time. And I'm trying to be polite. And the third time I said, please turn the machine around. And she said, I'm going to. So, and she claims I only said it once, but we had a discrepancy there because I did file a HAVA complaint. There was a lot of lying from this poll worker. And I did notice that the commissioner took her side, but I still won the HAVA complaint because I was being honest. But my point was, when the machine, I did all my voting, everything came out and they go, oh, nothing came out. It didn't work. I says to the poll worker, okay, could I use one of the other 2 machines? She said, no, you can't because we're using them as a scanner. She says, but we can have a Republican and a Democrat fill out, the paper for you. I said, no, that's taking my right to privacy away and my independence. I'm not going to do that. Now, I had a friend that was sitting there because she had voted. She was waiting like a ways for me. And I said, if I'm going to ask anybody, which I was really mad because I didn't want my friend to know how I vote. I just felt that it's private. So I said, if anybody, I'm going to ask one person instead of you 2 seeing how I vote. So I went to my friend and I said, look, I'm really sorry to ask you this, but can you help me to vote? And I was really mad about the whole thing. And, so she said, yes. So she had to fill out a form and, hopefully she voted the way I told her. I mean, I hope she's a trusting person, but she knew how I voted. And I told her I was very upset because I said, I've been doing this for like, I don't know, 10, 12 years now. And I said, and when the machine works, it works great. I can be in and out of there in 10 minutes. When it doesn't work, I could spend 20 minutes to 2 hours sitting there. Now, the poll worker never offered to call anybody. And she said, well, I'll let them know. And she said, it was working the whole week. And I said, oh, so Marilyn Tucci came in and it didn't work. And she never said, let me check, let me see, maybe it's out of ink, because the outcome was that machine was out of ink or it dried up, one or the other. But I was really shocked that the commissioner, I felt, really tried to make a fool out of me, shall we say, because when we had the hearing, and there were 2 people from Albany on, she asked me, she's Marilyn, do you know the difference between audio and visual? And I said, yes, when you see and when you hear. But she kept like making it like I was the lawyer and her poll worker was the truthful person. And I said, I am appalled. And I used the word a couple of times, appalled. What do you get out of protecting this poll worker for lying? I said, the first thing that when I walked in, it wasn't even facing the wall. The second thing was I was the one that asked, how can I use one of these other two machines? Because they put me in the middle. And this woman said, there's a machine on your right and on your left. We're using them as scanners. And she said to me, no, you can't use them because we're using them as scanners. So I said, she never offered me another machine or I would have sat there. So I said, I'm just appalled that a poll worker would lie. And I understand you being on our side because she works for you. But what are you guys getting out of this? This really happened. And there were witnesses there. There were other people there. You know, I mean, my friend signed a paper, you know, as to what happened. And I said, it's really a shame because 2 years before then I had a problem. And again, I won the Harvard complaint, you know, and for the next 2 years, everything was fine. Now, this last year, now this is a big election year. And I'm hoping that when I go in there to vote, because this time I'm going to be by myself, you know, just with my dog, that everything works out for me. But a lot of times the poll workers are not honest. So that's a big problem. And like I said, I was just appalled that a poll worker would lie about the whole thing. So I just wanted to share that with all of you.
Yeah, I am so sorry, Marilyn, for that experience. That is the exact type of experience that we don't want to have happen at the polls for anyone in our community. I definitely want to uplift all of the amazing resources that are being shared in the chat, all of the different ways that you're able to file complaints, all of that information. And to Rebecca's comment, all poll workers need disability training from people with disabilities. And to Alexia's follow-up, that we need more people with disabilities to also become poll workers. So with that, I will pass it on over to Alexia for some updates from the Rev Up team.
Thanks, Ollie. Hey, everyone. This is Alexia. And I want to emphasize to Marilyn, thank you for all of your advocacy around your voting experience, both responsive while you were in person and following up with those HAVA complaints. That's a lot of effort to cast your vote. And I really appreciate that you are fighting that fight and that so many people in our community are doing the same. And we're going to see the benefits from this work. We are. So I wanted to just share with you all a couple of updates from the Rev Up community. Excuse me, April, can you share the slides? Okay, so as you remember, I shared at our April meeting, based on reports people have sent in April, we had 135 new voters registered, and we had reached 859 voters through community outreach events in our Rev Up states. Next slide. Fast forward to today, we have registered 221 voters that you all have sent in reports about. Maybe that reaches a bit more, hopefully. But let's continue to get that number up. And then based on Rev Up community engagement events, we've reached 5,433 voters. So April dropped some links in the chat, but please remember if you're hosting voter outreach events to submit those reports so we can track our reach. And then we're gonna keep moving forward. And then I also wanted to just touch on Disability Voting Rights Week briefly. So we are 1 full week away from Disability Voting Rights Week, which launches on September 9th through September 13th. I am super excited seeing everybody's plans come through. We have had people submit events in 33 states with an expected reach of 5,000 people. So that is doubling our reach so far this year, which is incredible. We were able to ship swag boxes to a total of 95 events, which is almost double what we supported last year. So again, I'm really excited about everyone's work there. We will be sending out a calendar through the tool Mobilize to share out all of those different in-person, hybrid, and virtual events that are being hosted around the country. There's some really exciting ones like screenings of the Accessing Democracy movie. We've got some old favorites like the Great Sandwich Debate from the Self Advocates of New York State happening again. We've got Dance the Vote happening again in Missouri. And then a lot of voter education panels and really great events happening around the country. As you might remember from our Disability Voting Rights Week toolkit, we're tying in a couple of key issues this year to Disability Voting Rights Week: community integration, home and community-based services and accessible housing, economic justice and ending subminimum wage, and of course, the fight for an accessible democracy and celebrating our collective power as a community and voting bloc. My dogs got very excited about celebrating our collective power. There were some excited barks happening. And then, so stay tuned for some email updates next week and during Disability Voting Rights Week about quick actions you can take during the week on these important topics. And then I also wanted to pass it over to a couple of folks from our community for some additional updates. So on the topic of Disability Voting Rights Week, I'm going to pass it to Sanobar from EveryLibrary.
Everyone, thanks Alexia. My name is Sanobar Chagani. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a South Asian female with long dark hair, and I'm wearing a black top. I am just thrilled to be here. I work with EveryLibrary Institute as their Democracy Projects Coordinator. And EveryLibrary Institute is a 501c3 organization that's committed to innovative research into the public perceptions of libraries, fighting book bans in schools, and crafting pro-library legislation. And this year, we relaunched our Vote Libraries platform, which is basically geared toward public libraries to help librarians empower more of their patrons and community members get registered to vote and elevate opportunities for librarians within that sort of election administration space and create centers in the community by providing nonpartisan election-related information. And so a big part of this initiative is making sure that public library spaces are accessible, not just in their daily operations, but also in conducting election administration work. So we have been very thrilled to have worked with Ollie, Alexia, and Dwayne at REV to develop a library guide for Disability Voting Rights Week, so that more public librarians can ensure that they're providing accessible resources like candidate guides, and ensuring that there are no barriers to voting in libraries, and hosting events and programming to make more people aware of Disability Voting Rights Week. And I believe Alexia will be sharing some links to the Disability Voting Rights Week library guide, along with links to our websites. But I'm happy to also drop my email in the chat if anyone has any questions about this guide or about partnering with your local library to make it more accessible. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sanobar. I am personally so excited that this library guide was able to happen. It is an awesome resource, and I'm so excited for all of you to see it and for us to share it wide. So, with that, I will now pass it on over to Casey at the Center for American Progress. Take it away, Casey.
Thank you so much, Ollie. Hi, everyone. My name is Casey Doherty. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white woman with shoulder-length blonde hair, and I'm wearing a pink shirt and a black headband. And I'm the disability policy analyst at the Center for American Progress. Many of you may have worked with my supervisor, Mia Ives-Rubley. And we are working on a new initiative to understand how accessible voting is across the country in each state. We're asking disability and civic organizations to complete an accessible voting survey tool that will allow CAP to prioritize policies that will improve access for disabled voters. And so I'm hoping to partner with many of you on this initiative. I think you all, have very strong networks, and I really want to hear your stories and what you think about the state of voting in your state. So the tool has 4 main sections that will evaluate the voting process from registering to vote to submitting your ballot. And CAP will utilize this information to inform the public and policymakers about barriers to voting and the work being done to improve voting access for disabled people. So we want this to be really a coalition effort where we're connecting organizations that are doing similar work across the country. And we'll eventually kind of display the data by creating an online map that displays average scores in each state based on the survey data we receive. And once the surveys are done for each state, we plan to highlight disabled voters' access to voting stories. These stories will be done via a mix of videos and written testimonials. The deadline for participation is September 13th, but I'm very happy to work with folks if that doesn't seem feasible. And as a person with an energy limiting disability myself, I also want to say that if the survey feels too long, super happy to work with you to pare down questions and just, want to make sure the survey is in the most accessible format to all folks. So definitely, just reach out to me and we can work on that together. I also want to know, I know Alexia had put in the chat, the Rev Up general election guides, I think will be a very helpful resource when completing this survey as well. And the link to the survey will be shared in the chat as well as my email address. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me. And also just if you can think of someone else that might like to complete the survey, someone in your organization or another, please feel free to email me contact info or go ahead and share the survey yourself. I really appreciate you sharing this project with your networks, and thank you for the time to speak about the project.
Of course, Casey. I'm so happy that we were able to create some space to share more about this project and for there to be some opportunities for collaboration happening from this space too. So with that, we will go ahead and open the space up for general community updates or questions. Your questions can be to either of our speakers, so Sanobar or Casey, or it can be some updates about the awesome work that you're being able to do leading up to Disability Voting Rights Week, or just get out the vote initiatives. April, I will pass it off to you first. Okay, no worries. I will pass it now off to Chana.
Hey guys, my name's Kana Blesnick. I'm the voter engagement advocate for Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled. And I wanted to share that last time when I was on one of these calls, someone mentioned getting like mayoral and governor proclamations and welcome letters for our events. And last night we got an email from the Brooklyn mayor that we got the proclamation. So we're super excited to display that and have that at our event. So thanks so much for the idea. It was a really easy process and I think it adds a really cool element.
That is awesome. Congratulations about the proclamation. From the chat from Marty, I have in Charlotte, North Carolina, we're preparing for a community education event for Disability Voting Rights Week. The title is Accessible Voting and the Importance of the Disability Vote. We're going to highlight voting in our youth program at one of the meetups this fall and hopefully get a few people registered to vote for the first time, which is awesome. I will now pass it off to Karen.
Hi, good evening. This is Karen. I wanted to update Alabama and let you all know the upcoming events that have been scheduled for the kickoff to Disability Voting Rights Week. We have nailed down an apartment complex where we will partner with some others, League of Women Voters and others, to come out to give new laws affecting Alabamians. We're also planning a caravan through communities throughout Montgomery. We're going to do a statewide tour, but initially our capital is in Montgomery. So we're going to start there. We're going to also be gathering up transportation arrangement information to ensure that the appropriate transportation is given wheelchair accessibility or any other transportation that is needed for individuals who would like a ride to the polls. Then September the 17th, we're at a local community center and have requested the Secretary of State's voter ID bus, which gives free photo voter IDs to those who may need them. I've been reaching out to some high schools, SGAs, and we're going to continue on making sure that our rural areas are also covered, because we have a new congressional district this year. And so we want to make sure that everybody gets out to vote. Thank you.
Karen, this is all so awesome. Shout out to all the work that y'all are doing with the Rev Up Alabama Coalition. It is amazing. It is awesome. I will also read a couple things that have come up in the chat. So in Southwest Missouri, Shelby is going to host mock elections that week of Disability Voting Rights Week in 2 counties for people to register, but also practice and help make a plan to vote. Amazing. I also see that Amelia is working with the lead of medical campaigns to integrate a Rev Up, Get Out the Vote into their tabling plans for people over profits, which is amazing. And I will pass it over to the next hand I see up, which is Dawn.
I'm with Colorado Cross Disability Coalition and a couple ARPs and a couple independent living centers will be collaborating on a virtual voting event in late September, early October, where we will go over how to register to vote, check your registration, accessibility tools, and then statewide ballot initiatives just before we receive our mail. We are all mail in ballot states. So just before our ballots are mailed to us.
Awesome. And great timing with the timing of the mail-in ballots. Amazing. I will pass it over to Brittany.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to, my name's Brittany Maddox. I use she, her pronouns. I work with Jennifer Kuchera in a lot of spaces. And so she was unable to join the call this afternoon because she's providing a separate training. But I wanted to just pass along some really good information that happened in Ohio in a lawsuit that she was involved in. Previously, Ohio passed a voter restriction law that would make it a felony for anyone outside of a very narrow select few people who could like help someone vote and have their ballot. It'd make a felony like if a caregiver helped a person vote. And a judge struck down that voter law and said that using the Voting Rights Act and stated that a person with a disability can choose who they want to help them vote. So they're currently working with the Ohio Secretary of State's office to find out how they can announce this to everyone so that more people understand that they will be able to have caregivers help them mail in their ballots and it won't be a felony.
That is phenomenal work. Next, I will pass it over to Carrie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Carlson, and I am with Rev Up Tennessee. And I wanted to start off by saying that from the comments earlier, at Rev Up Tennessee, we're really working hard to work with our civic engagement organizations that are doing really great grassroots voter registration and poll observing and poll worker training. And Disability Rights Tennessee is actually doing training for poll workers that are doing disability specific trainings. So yes, hopefully we can get more of people with disabilities working the polls, especially now and moving forward. So thank you guys for sharing. But we do have a lot of things going on. I know we don't have a lot of time, but we are currently working in Tennessee to get a proclamation for Disability Voting Rights Week. Very hopeful that that will come through and that we'll be able to kind of share that with you all. We're also working with content creators to get really great disability specific content out about voting rights, Disability Voting Rights Week. And we have hired an advocate who is on the call if he can just come off and of camera. So we have an advocate who's working to get all this great stuff out. He joined us today. So his name is Cecil Williams. He'll be helping to spread the word about things that the Rev Up is doing. And we also got the National Federation of the Blind Tennessee worked with the Secretary of State's office, and we have a absentee ballot for people with print disabilities. And so we're working really hard to clear up the miscommunications that are on the Secretary of State's website about registering and how you go about that. And really trying to get the word out about all of about that new bill, because it's really Tennessee doesn't usually go forward with voting for people with disabilities. So we're really excited and hopeful for this new legislation. But I will stop it there and thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Carrie, for all of y'all's work in Tennessee. Yes, to everything being said in the chat. Awesome work to all the folks in Tennessee. I will read some more things that have come up in the chat. So from Lila Zucker, for folks in Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana. It's a long list of southern states, y'all. If New Disabled South can uplift or support with materials, money, recruiting folks, you can work with them, with New Disabled South, and Lila attached the email. So that's in the chat if you'd like it. I also see Tina's hand raised, so I will pass it on over to Tina. Tina, if you're able to come off mute. Oh, go right ahead.
Ooh.
Yeah, there seem to be some technical difficulties. Tina, as you are able to come off mute, please do. In the meantime, I will pass it over to you, Susan.
Oh, oops. Oh, sorry about that. Hi, this is Susan Leidick. I'm a co-chair of Rev Up Virginia along with Helena Berger. And we're very excited. Right now we have about 12 events scheduled to celebrate Disability Voting Rights Week, starting with a webinar that we're doing next Wednesday, September 4th on the disability vote in Virginia. And we're partnering up with the League of Women Voters of Virginia and the Virginia Association for Centers for Independent Living. They're two of our coalition partners to help with that webinar next week. And then just brand new right off the press, yesterday I got an email from a woman by the name of Linda Harris with the John Lewis High School in Springfield, Virginia, and their John Lewis Leadership Program, an event that's going to occur. The students are planning for Monday morning, September 9th from 9 to 11. And they invited Rev Up Virginia to be there. So we'll be interacting with student leaders, high numbers of Hispanic students actually that are in this leadership program. And after the event at John Lewis High School, and where Rev Up Virginia will have a presence, then they go to the FDR Museum, FDR Memorial, and for a presentation there, and then to the Capitol steps, and will be met by legislators. So we're excited. This is a brand new thing, and it's the only student-led high school's John Lewis leadership program in the country, I understand. So we're very excited. And then we have all kinds of events with George Mason University on the 12th, Mary Washington University, Christopher Newport, all sorts of activities where we're doing voter registration and educational events through Disability Voting Rights Week, and then also into October. So we're very excited. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Poor Susan, y'all are doing amazing work in Virginia. That is awesome, especially all those collaborations with local universities. I want to read a couple things from the chat. So from Paul is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Paul coordinates a program called Ballots for Patients, where they organize volunteers, mainly people with disabilities, to go into hospitals and provide emergency absentee ballot assistance on or around Election Day. So they have a virtual registration link in the chat if you're interested in going. And Paul is co-leading a workshop for them called If People with Disabilities Are the Largest Minority Group in American Politics, Why Isn't Anyone Trying to Get My Vote? Great title. So shout out to Paul's event. I also want to uplift Christie's comment in the chat. My sister Carrie just helped the Justice Department to make Los Angeles County accessible for voting, and there's a link there. And with that, I will pass it on over to Tina. We aren't able to hear you just yet. Here, Tina, if you want to write in the chat your response, that might help. We seem to be running into some technical difficulties. So in the meantime, I will pass it on over to Lydia.
Hi, y'all. This is Lydia Nunez Landry in Texas, and it's been really busy. So we're on September 10th from 1 to 3 p.m. We are having 14 statewide Party to Power the Disability Vote parties with 14 different organizations, and that will be also broadcast on Zoom. I've applied for 8 proclamations so far. I'm getting 7. Houston, the city of Houston's not doing proclamations right now with the new mayor. We've done talks in voter registration at UHCL, and voter registration at assisted living centers. We did the REV Up, the Houston Abilities Expo on August 2nd through 4th, where we set up a table, registered voters, and provided education. I've made a bunch of PowerPoint slides to do things like have voter education at the LGBTQ Montrose Center, and we're partnering with the League of Women Voters to do education for 6 days at a local library, and part of that will be on disability voting rights and access. We participated in a VoteWorks poll machine access testing. Yesterday I did a television interview with ABC 13 News. I'm not sure when that's going to air and how much they're going to cut out, but some of that will also be done nationally. On September 17th, I'm doing another talk at UHCL on disability, voting rights, and access. On September 23rd, I'll be doing the same talk for the Alexander Family Jewish Center. Then there's the voter registration at the library on the 30th, October 7th through 12th, and October 1st through the 5th. And yeah, then we have our regular Rev Up meetings. So I think, and then there's our social media page. So I think we're doing a pretty good job. And I think it was it Lila with New Disabled South. I would love to partner with you guys. I desperately need help. I am getting really, really tired. Houston and Texas are huge, and I really could use all the help anyone has to offer right now, because I'm getting so many requests to talk at different colleges, and I have to have someone drive me around. I have muscular dystrophy. I could really use some help on that. I even have PowerPoint slides and everything ready. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, Lydia, and hope that this call can act as a moment of connection so you can get more support. To some of the comments I also see in the chat, I see from Shamika on September 24th and 26th from 2 to 7 p.m. SBANYS and the ILCHV are coordinating a disability voter registration event. They're hoping that it will increase voter registration while also staying nonpartisan, and that is in New York. Love to see all the New York representation. Trying to make sure I catch everyone here. From Tamara in the chat, I NYS Coalition of Higher Education and Disability Students are working with the SUNY school system, spelled CUNY, and SUNY, SUNY providers, and SUNY disability ambassadors and independent colleges across New York provide information to register students with disabilities and provide info if living on their campus and how to get an early vote through early voting ballots. And they're hoping to increase students with disabilities voter registration, which is awesome. Thank you, Amelia. So, CUNY, I appreciate these. If there are more folks who want to come off mute and share some of the events that they're doing, please feel free. From Harold, I just got access to Independence Center in Portland, New York. We'll have a lunch and trivia on September 18th. And I see Carol, you have your hand up.
Yep. We did at Rev Up Illinois, we're still kind of, collecting everyone, but there was a presentation, Nafia's on here from Progress Center still and presented at a Planned Parenthood event. And then earlier this week, Rev Up Illinois presented to the Illinois Center for Independent Living Network. And then we have proclamations coming from the governor of Illinois and the mayor of Chicago, as well as I'm just kind of waiting to see. There's several pop-up events, and then we'll also be presenting to the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities on the importance of voting, as well as our regular meetings. We had a really fun video come in. Maybe I can link that before everyone goes out. And then we're also waiting for another video to come in. I have been completely rigorous with my 100-day vote shirt challenge. So I've been wearing a vote shirt every day. And then that continues, and we've had participants come in on that. And even from like Dubai, we've had someone traveling. And so she's just an awesome young advocate. And she was at like the butter sculpture at a state fair with her vote shirt, and then in Dubai. So we've had a lot of fun with it. And then the Center for Independent Living is also doing some really hard-hitting polling place audits. But the ARC of Illinois accommodates a lot of different advocacy levels and people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we want this to be like a welcoming and very broad initiative. So it's been a lot of fun. So thank you.
That sounds awesome, Carol. And I love that shirt challenge. I feel like I should be joining in on this.
I mean, I've been wearing it. Today I'm going to have an unboxing of our new Rev Up Illinois shirt. So I'm actually I feel weird because I'm wearing a plain shirt, but that will happen momentarily. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. And if you all wear vote shirts and you send them to me, I will post them on Rev Up Illinois social media, and it's just going to be fun. We've been posting voting tips on that too. So send them our way.
That's awesome. Yes, I would love to see those photos come up. I'm excited. From Zan, I see Georgia Adapt got natives to polls so far, Lower Muskogee Creek, and will be going to their powwow, which is awesome.
Wow.
I will pass it off to Adela next.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Adela Lankravitz from New York. I run a non-for-profit organization for people with the developmental disabilities in New York metro area. I'm an Asian female with glasses and long hair and wearing a strapped top. I would like to share with the group, listening to all the great work you are sharing with everyone is very, very inspiring. So I wanted to share with everyone that we have been working on a educational deck that's educating our community of people with developmental disabilities and their families and the service providers about the disability rights. It's called, we actually have a name. The program is, the deck is called You Can Vote Too. For our organization, which is made mostly with the Asian immigrants, and also with the disabilities. It's a very underserved community. A lot of teenagers and young adults after 18 is unaware of their voting rights. A lot of adults and then never voted. So this is really a fresh breath of air and then into their life. And then tomorrow we are actually hosting an education event, a session that to reach out to 20 students who are either teenagers or young adults with the developmental disabilities, to introduce about disability voting rights, and who's eligible to vote, and disability voting rights history, civil rights history, a little bit of education of these the histories and what they're entitled to, the barrier we're still facing. Most importantly, we encourage them to register. So far, we have at least over six, a new person has registered, and tomorrow it's another good opportunity for us to outreach and push for more young adults with developmental disabilities to come out and vote. We're very excited about this new event. And then this type of education event, we're planning to do every 6 weeks for the rest of the year.
Awesome. And then doing those events consistently will just be amazing. I want to uplift a few more things from the chat. So from Brianna Zimmerman from Stavros Center for Independent Living. Brianna will be the new voting rights advocate at the Disability Law Center starting on Tuesday, or primary day. Stavros is working on 2 Disability Voting Rights Week events and working on having towns and cities declare September 9th through 13th as Disability Voting Rights Week. Congratulations, Brianna. I also see Cal Life ILC in downtown Los Angeles will host Walk and Roll the Vote in partnership with Disability Rights California on September 11th from 11 to 3 p.m. Thank you, Christy, for uplifting that. And I also see from Alexia lifting up here the amazing work of one of our 2024 Rev Up grantees who created Know Your Rights brochures, translated into a variety of AAPI languages. Thank you, Alexia. I will now pass it over to Molly.
Thompson. I'm from Disability Rights Maine, Maine's protection and advocacy organization. I'm sort of the leader, facilitator of Maine's Rev Up Coalition. Happy to be here with you all today. I can give you a bit of an update on our coalition. So actually right before this meeting, we got an email that Maine's Governor Janet Mills approved and signed our proclamation for Disability Voting Rights Week. So that's really exciting, and we'll be using that in our sort of PR that we'll distribute. We're planning different things around voter registration. And then Maine's Coalition is also working on a plain language bill requiring our state legislature to write referendum questions in plain language. So we're working on getting sponsors for that, and we will be introducing it in January in our new legislative session. So yeah, that's exciting and good timing with the proclamation announcement for this meeting. Thank you.
That's absolutely awesome, Molly. I think that we have now made it through everyone's updates. I am personally so happy to have been in community with all of you tonight, being able to hear about these awesome, amazing events and work that you are all doing to empower the disability community. For our next call, it will be on October 24th. So please make sure you register for that. The link is in the chat. Thank you, April. And as you all know, Disability Voting Rights Week is September 9th through 13th. So please get excited, get plugged into events if you aren't already. Election Day is 68 days away. So we are in crunch time. And on October 24th, that will be the next Rev Up quarterly call. So that will be from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And April sent the link in the chat. Thank you all so much for coming today. And I'm so excited to see what we will be sharing on our next call. See you all soon.
Thank you. Have a great day.